now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for July 1st. And here is a view of Potential Tropical Cyclone 2L, which is still at that status, and I imagine is annoying quite a few people with its reluctance to become a named storm. Although I must say, looking at this loop, it's starting to look more likely. It should happen fairly soon, but at the moment it's still not there, with a 90% chance of development. The other big story, as you saw in the headline there, is in the Western Pacific, where we have Tropical Storm Chaba intensifying quite nicely, actually, with a suggestion that this storm could reach typhoon status pretty soon. JTWC, obviously, they're forecasting it, and they have extended the duration of that typhoon status in their latest forecast. And just look how much area it's covering there in the South China Sea. Pretty enormous. Elsewhere, looking at the Eastern Pacific as a whole, you can see what looks almost like a tropical cyclone there. Looking decent, that inverse, it has to be said. But in reality, it is not yet designated. It's 60% still from the National Hurricane Center, if I remember correctly. And in the Western Pacific as a whole, there's the full picture. You can see both those systems, the one on the east there, named by the Philippines earlier, Demeng, and is likely to become a second tropical storm on the map there over the course of the next 24 hours, and then affects the Japanese islands. So quite early in the year, still quite early in the season in the Northern Hemisphere, and we've got quite a bit of action right now. So lots of things that myself and my team are going to be discussing here on Force 13 Live, a live tropical weather bulletin. You don't see that every so often, but we've had two in a row. My name is Nathan Foy here in the studio, and you can see me, and we're showing Hong Kong time once again on our bottom left hand panel, whilst we look at Tropical Storm Chaba, the satellite imagery there. And tonight I am joined by my team, which we have with us Ethan, Xavier, Adafira, Christian, and Lucas. Hello to all of you this evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're presented with this chart showing the latest JTWC forecast, showing two typhoon dots there at both 65 knots, 75 miles per hour. And they expect this to happen by the time we get to, when's that? Evening on the almost 24 hours from now, 18 hours from now, and then make landfall probably as that Category 1 typhoon. So interesting to see that forecast, and I think it's shifted westwards. Who'd like to begin for us?
Yeah, I can start with that. I have the cone up on my end as well. That has been a trend when it comes to 4W or sort of Chaba now. It used to start off where indications were that it was going to make landfall Hong Kong or just east of it, and ever since then it's been continuing to trend west and west towards the Hainan Peninsula. So it is looking possible that we do see a landfall near there. Either way, the storm is pretty large at this point, so they're going to be getting tropical storm force winds, regardless of the shift at this point, unless there's some kind of dramatic shift that happens, which I don't foresee at this point. But given the fact that it has been getting itself organized pretty well throughout the day today, I wouldn't be surprised if it were able to get a bit stronger than the JTWC is showing here, but in the end, what we're dealing with eventually is going to be that land interaction towards the little final phases, and whether it makes landfall in the Hainan Peninsula rather than staying out on the water. Regardless, I wouldn't exactly call the biggest threat with this the winds. You can see that the typhoon force wind field is going to be that large. The tropical storm force wind field will be large, however. But it's definitely going to be the rainfall. This could stall out after landfall, and we could be looking at easily 400 to 500 millimeters of rain in some spots as a result.
Oh, yes. So that's the biggest threat we've got right now, code orange on Ticos still. Ethan, you're showing us what's going on the other side, and probably we've got divided attention, really. We've got two different areas and different parts of the world to be covering. We'll try and go with the flow with what the viewers are asking about during our stream, but if you've got questions about either of these systems, and I was going to say two systems, but there's more than that, so any of the systems out there, do let us know. Ethan, 2L.
It's been looking very interesting. Still has failed to become a tropical cyclone. I believe it formed, how long ago? On Sunday, I believe?
It's been 75 hours now.
Yeah, so it's been a while. But yeah, looks to be somewhat trying to become a tropical cyclone here, as I was anticipating a while ago, actually. The system was moving pretty fast as it moved over northern South America and over I forget this island. It's off the tip of my tongue. But now that movement
Trinidad
speed
and Tobago.
Yes, thank you. Now that it is actually getting its decreasing its movement speed, I should say, it should allow it to become a tropical cyclone much more easier than what it was over here. So probably going to be seeing a tropical storm making landfall here in southern Nicaragua very soon. National Hurricane Center thinks that it'll happen. What looks to be midday tomorrow. It looks like I'm just checking the NHC code on my other screen. Yeah, they have it late Friday, early Saturday at this point. Maybe even a bit into Saturday. But yeah, it looks like that they have it forecast to make landfall around 65, maybe pushing 70 miles per hour, maybe, when it makes landfall. But of course, those watches and warnings are in effect. We do have a hurricane watch that's in effect for the coast of Nicaragua / Costa Rica. Just for the coast of Nicaragua, actually, from the border with Costa Rica, northward to Laguna de Perlas. And we do also have a tropical storm warning for San Andres, Colombia, as well as Liman, Costa Rica, northward to Sandy Bay, Sirpi, Nicaragua. And we also do have, for the eastern Pacific side of this, a tropical storm watch from Cabo Blanco, Costa Rica, northward to Puerto Sandino, Nicaragua. And of course, the National Hurricane Center does forecast this to become a hurricane as this does push off into the eastern Pacific. So I wonder if maybe we'll see some tropical storm warnings or watches go up soon for maybe these part of the coast over here, or maybe over here later on down the line. We'll have to wait and see on that.
Well, that part of the forecast is really what Ethan's eyeing up. He wants the hurricane in the eastern Pacific. San Andres, by the way, part of Colombia, is one of those little islands before the storm reaches Nicaragua, an area that we were watching extremely closely during, I think it was Iota. I forget which one's which between Ada and Iota, but that one Iota affected Providencia, which is further north, and it was in the, is it out of the warnings, Providencia, then?
I have no clue.
It must be. I find that a little bit surprising. I'd have at least kept it under a watch, but there we have it. But San Andres further south under that tropical storm warning, and it looks like it would track very close to that island. The one you're seeing on Ethan's screen, or is that San Andres? Oh, it is. Oh, right, so Providencia is quite far out of that. I was thinking that what you're hovering over was that the one further south was Providencia and San Andres was not visible on your map, but yeah, never mind that. So yeah, it's a storm track that will be deviating very far south, and there's not many comparisons. We were talking about them in last night's bulletin.
To this,
mainly Otto and such. Otto and its friend Otto.
I mean, obviously, one significant comparison comes up, and that's Cesar Douglas back in 1996.
Yes.
Not saying that this is going to get to the strength of what Douglas did in the East Pack, but that's the last time that I can think of a storm forming here and getting some strength in the Atlantic and actually peaking in the East Pack, which it looks like that's something we're going to do. That's the last time that I can really recall something like this doing that. Of course, Otto did peak in the Atlantic and made landfall as a Category 3. Not saying that this is going to be like that, but it has been quite some time that we've seen something like this, where a tropical storm forms in the Caribbean Sea or in the Atlantic Basin, moves into the East Pack, and peaks in there, as the National Hurricane Center is currently forecasting.
And also the lesser remembered Hurricane Irene Olivia in 1971. That was also stronger on the Pacific side too. That actually has a very similar track to this storm, but it performed better than 2L has so far.
Of course.
Anything else you wanted to add there, Ethan?
Regarding the models, though, doesn't really look like that this system is going to gain much strength at all, really, prior to making landfall in Nicaragua. Sure, 65 miles per hour is something significant.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's an increase of over 50%. I'm struggling... Yeah. Well, I'm not struggling that much because it's the Caribbean Sea, but I wouldn't be extremely confident about it getting all the way up to 65 miles an hour.
No, actually, because originally the NHC was forecasting a hurricane making landfall here a couple days ago, but of course that is not happening. And based on the latest trends that I'm seeing, I'm only seeing a peak around maybe 45 to 50 miles per hour prior to landfall here. So certainly that's some good news, but this is still going to bring some impacts. Of course, heavy rainfall is going to be the primary concern with this, as this is a very mountainous region, and some mudslides might occur as well, some flash flooding issues. But regarding the overall...
I just want to let everyone know that as even though the intensity forecast has dropped a little bit, the rainfall forecast has not, and we're still expecting not widespread, but a significant area near the border of Nicaragua and Costa Rica to get 10 inches of rain or more, 250 millimeters.
Yeah, that kind of rainfall can lead to a lot of issues, and I know that a lot of people in these kind of tropical cyclones, especially in Central America, underestimate the power of rainfall. Don't. Trust me. It can lead to some very bad things.
I'll take this opportunity now to go over to this imagery. Here's the Gulf of Mexico right now, and see if you can spot the low pressure center, if there is one over there on the coast of Texas, because that is still marked, and it probably won't be for much longer. There's not much to be said about that. There's some cloudiness on the eastern side of what would be its center, and you know, a little bit of a weather soup going on in the Gulf Coast states, and some thunderstorms blowing up further north up the Mississippi, but no tropical cyclone there.
Yeah, I can pull up imagery. I can actually pull up some, since this is close to land, I can actually pull up radar imagery, Nathan, if you'd like.
Well, yes, I don't think you'll see much.
Well, let's have a look. There's our center. That's our very broad center.
Oh, come off it. You can't see it as a center.
It does have a very elongated center right now, where it's not entirely closed, but it does have something, but it's very unorganized, and that's what's not, and that's what what's
nothing there.
Well, yeah, because there's not really much convection. All the convection is on the eastern side, which if we go over to, say, the Houston radar, and oh, there's not much either here either.
So even if you're being extremely optimistic for 95L, you're pretty screwed.
Well, I can try to get some imagery up. of 95. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. You
Yeah, you
a
can see
little bit more there.
there's our center, and there's all the action off the eastern side.
That's better imagery than the one I was able to show. And the other Atlantic area of interest, which has fallen sort of by the wayside a little bit as well, an area of interest further out there in the main development region, which Ethan's trying to get a handle on.
There.
Is that the one?
That's it right there. It's not this X back here because there's WSC3 is running behind today, but this is our area of interest. NHC give this what, a 10% chance? Yeah. I actually today that 10% is actually kind of generous, to be honest.
Although for a time it almost looked like the Atlantic was about to go bonkers again, didn't it?
Yeah, and this is still, I mean, technically we are into July now on the UTC clock, but over here in the US it's still June 30th. This is, did I just say June 30th?
Yes.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's not what it is.
I mean, tell
Old
me it's not
jokes
September
there.
right now. Tell me it's not September.
It does feel a little bit like late August. I don't want to say September because usually you see something that has an eye on the picture.
Oh, fair enough.
But there we have it. Now, there's the East Pac system, Ethan. What do you make of that? It looks good on satellite imagery.
Oh my goodness.
But it is... what is it lacking, actually, right now? I've not been paying much attention myself.
It's actually lacking a center of circulation, actually. It looks like that the center, I don't know what the imagery is doing, but it looks like that it's whacked up or something. But really what we're looking at is, I'll kind of draw it out here. When we're looking at a center, we're looking at generally a circle, you know. That's what close center is. But in general, we're actually looking at something kind of like this. I believe it's called a trough or something. I don't know what this is called, but someone can correct me. But basically, the circulation isn't close on the southern side. And that's what's really keeping this from being a tropical cyclone right now. One could argue that this was actually a tropical cyclone a day or two ago, which I'd argue that it very strongly was.
It was.
We can debate all on
Now,
that.
there's the ASCAT from earlier, from about 6 hours ago, that I've just actually seen for the first time, showing it to have, there is a 35 knot reading on that, which is interesting. But it's very, very clear to see that there is no, it's half a circulation. The southern side is absolutely not there. Despite its good appearance, it's not a tropical storm.
Yeah, if it can close off that southern center at a southern side of its circulation, then we have a tropical depression or maybe even a tropical storm here in the East Pac. It's got the organization, just needs the center of circulation. NHC are giving this 60%. They had 70 earlier. Not sure why they've gone down though.
It's been
I would
down to
say
60 for 24 hours now.
It has.
It was down to 60 last night.
Xavier, you're able to show us 5W.
Yeah, so this is the latest cone on TD5W. Filipino name, Demang, if I recall correctly. Looks like it's going to be passing through the Okinawa Islands and peak around 60 miles an hour before it is likely that it passes north. It's probably more likely that it's going to be turning extratropical towards the time it gets to South Korea and passes in. So if you were watching this from southern South Korea or western Japan, I would be prepared for some heavy rain as well. Models have kind of been a bit confused as to what will happen, whether it's going to pass west of South Korea, or it's going to pass east, whether it's going to try to do some random thing into Japan.
I think it'll definitely look ugly by the time it gets up there.
It's not going to look that great. It's not going to be any formidable typhoon by any means. So if you're trying to compare it to typhoons that have hit in the past, it's not in the worst categories of bad. It's pretty much your typical tropical storm that does end up coming up there. I wouldn't really say it's anything different. I mean, obviously threats are still there, but I mean, this is an area that typically gets tropical cyclones every year. So this isn't really too much of a surprise. The good news is the tropical storm force wind field isn't going to be as huge as Chaba's. And in fact, it looks like the tropical storm force wind field actually starts decreasing by the time it does get to South Korea. It's only 40 miles an hour by the time it gets there. So really, it's just gusty winds. We're not going to be seeing tropical storm force winds more than likely, as long as this doesn't over verify, and doesn't seem like it will. So
Yeah, it hasn't really trended upwards for a while now. Just a note about rainfall totals with this. In South Korea, particularly towards the southeast, we could be looking at maybe 150 to 200 millimeters of rain from the storm as well. So, in fact, I think it was more than that. I believe there's a population of about 1.3 million in a 10% chance for 250 millimeters in Okinawa and in South Korea.
sounds about right, given high population density area there.
Yep. Now let's see if we've got some questions. People haven't sent them in for a little bit, but I know that we had some earlier on. People always send them in very early and then they forget, and then we say, now it's time to ask you questions. And we had a few. What did we have? Well, there was actually some disbelief early on about how Chaba could possibly form faster than Potential Tropical Cyclone 2. They said David Montez was one of those people there, sounding in utter disbelief that, or it was unfair that Chaba was forming faster than PTC 2.
If I may, how is it unfair?
Well, no, they didn't say that, but it sort of sounded like that tone.
Right.
Because the Atlantic deserves all the nice things.
No, it doesn't.
Well, this is why we can't have nice things.
Lord.
That's not true.
But no, seriously, and another question came in a very similar line. Why is PTC2 struggling whilst Chaba is already getting its name?
There's
multiple-
two completely different environments.
Well, I mean, if we were given an actual technical answer, what we have right now with 2L is basically a lack of convection, really. In fact, it was struggling to be classified on Dvorak earlier because of how much convection it lost. That, and it still has not gotten that low-level circulation fully strong enough for it to be considered a tropical cyclone. That's been the problem with it for days. The thing that's been keeping it from being a tropical cyclone for most of its life as a PTC has been the fact that there hasn't been a low-level center of circulation. And they've been sending recon plane after recon plane after recon plane to check to see if there is that well-defined low level of circulation, and they continue to not find it. Now that it's going to be slowing down, it should be easier for it to get its low-level center of circulation together, and that would get it finally up to tropical storm designation, as long as it can actually get that convection sustained again. But obviously, if it doesn't become in the next 36 hours, that's going to be it for the Atlantic side of things in terms of naming it.
Well,
Obviously,
yeah, and imagine if that happened, Xavier. The doubters would be insufferable.
yeah, it doesn't seem like a likely scenario, but of course we've been saying it's going to get named soon. It's going to get named soon for 3 freaking days now, and here we are. It's gonna.
3 days later.
If it's not in the Atlantic, it'll be the Eastern Pacific, because we seem to have a lot of a way to go with this storm. It does not stop here. After all, it's not really common that we see anything that's getting tracked with the cone going from the Atlantic to the Eastern Pacific as is.
And another question there, if 2L crosses into the East Pacific and forms there, would it be Bonnie or the next Eastpac name?
It would be the
It would
next
be the
Eastpac
next
name.
Eastpac name.
Could you imagine 2L Derby?
See, now, what would be the funniest thing is that in the middle of Nicaragua it would get, so like Lake Nicaragua.
Oh,
it would
no.
Oh God.
Don't do that.
We've actually just had some update from the Japan Meteorological Organization here.
The
They
JMA.
they have upgraded Chaba to a severe tropical storm with a pressure of 980 millibars. I don't know what 10-minute winds they have on that, but they've just upgraded Chaba to a severe tropical storm on their scale.
Wow, impressive. I'll get that information as soon as possible. In the meantime, let's just cross back to the latest rapid scan imagery of the storm right now. Looking particularly formidable on the close-up view. Don't have news of that here just yet, but it would be
I've got it, Nathan.
okay.
They've gone. Yeah, I don't have it on my end either.
Oh,
But I think according to public server relations, they've gone with 60 miles per hour in 10 minutes sustained winds. But that's a slightly stronger storm than what they had at their last update, which was what, just about 3 hours ago.
Yeah, I think so.
well, the severe tropical storm classification begins at 60 miles per hour, pretty much. So they're saying it's at least that strong, and I think it's going to get to typhoon strength fairly soon, and maybe do a little bit better than that as well. Let's see if we had some more questions. I'm just reading back through chat now, and that is one of our main purposes for being here tonight, to take questions. So when we get bigger situations, we go from a sort of closed normal update format that's just good at delivering the information concisely to doing live events where we try and where we feel it's more of a public interest to have more engagement. Right, still looking for stuff right now. Our thoughts about 5W. It's very close to being named. Oh, I tell you what though, in a year where the Western Pacific's supposed to be ailing and the Atlantic is supposed to be thriving, imagine 2 storm names getting named before the Atlantic manages to get 2L its name, which is quite possible. I think 5W will have a name within 24 hours.
I think it might be sooner than that.
Well, yeah, I mean generous there, possibly within 12 hours.
I think it might be the next update, to be honest.
All right, well,
'Cause they named Chaba just after last night, and
well, yeah, that's
latest-
true actually.
latest-
Just as we went off the air, wasn't it?
latest data that does indeed support a tropical storm 1-minute winds though, for 5W. So maybe something will happen. We'll wait and see though.
Now, we haven't shown them yet properly, but here are the National Hurricane Center graphics for PTC 2. This is as of the intermediate advisory. Of course, they only do a position update. They don't change the cone on the intermediates. And once again, you can see that forecast cone there, taking it through Central America as a tropical storm. Friday night, Saturday morning, and out in the Eastern Pacific towards hurricane status, and should miss land, but Ethan mentioned earlier there is that possibility that it could affect parts of Mexico. And I just wanted to bring up a few of those graphics just so that we can go through them. These are the potential arrival times for tropical storm force winds. Friday afternoon for the coast of Nicaragua and Costa Rica. Friday morning for San Andres, and overnight Friday night for the west coast of Nicaragua as well. And just those, I thought we had the wind speed probabilities, but you can see it in the small corner there. The key messages: heavy rainfall possible across Nicaragua and Costa Rica by Friday. Areas of life-threatening flash flooding mudslides are expected. Hurricane conditions are still possible, though, within the hurricane watch area along the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua late Friday. And tropical storm conditions, and I'll have to get up another window so I can see what the hidden text is saying there. Expected, I think, is the word there on San Andres on Friday. Along the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica and Nicaragua within the tropical storm warning areas late Friday, and are possible within the tropical storm watch areas along the Pacific coast of Costa Rica and Nicaragua on Saturday. Basically what I said earlier. So that's a little rundown on PTC2. We're still expecting the highest rain amounts will probably be of around the 250mm range. and that would be around, displaced a little bit to the southern side of the storm. There were some more comments. Did tropical storms have eye walls, and did a potential tropical cyclone crossover before?
Well, potential tropical cyclones have only been designated since 2017, and no, none of them have crossed over since the last crossover storm was Otto, and that was 2016. So this will be the first PTC to cross over, although it is expected to get a name by that, as long as it actually gets its stuff together. So yeah, no, we haven't had any PTC crossovers as a result.
Will PTC2 form the same like Claudette, is a question there.
Oh dear, Claudette is a completely different thing that I don't even want to begin to discuss because Claudette was also entirely stupid. See, the thing is, with Claudette, not only did it become a tropical storm inland once, it became a tropical storm inland again because it decided to become one over western North Carolina, which, keep in mind, is far inland given its landfall in Louisiana. So, needless to say, Claudette is a special case I'm not going to get into, between the steam jet, between how it took a long time to get designated, and you thought Claudette was impatient enough for some people to get tested on because it took a while. Yet we've had Alex break that, we've had 2L now break that. So it seems that this is a trend for the Atlantic season where PTCs just flat out take forever to develop for some reason.
Go on, how many advisories has it been? You were counting them earlier.
We're up to 26 so far. The previous record was Alex for most PTC advisories at 20.
Ouch. So, certainly can't make its mind up. But we don't pre-name here, as much as it's tempting to say whether it's going to be a such a thing. Now then, why is the National Hurricane Center even using the term of PTC when other outlets have mentioned or named it as a tropical storm already? Well, who are the other outlets?
Yeah, good question. There's a lot of outlets that like to also pre-name, but no, the National Hurricane Center is the one that has the official forecast, and the term potential tropical cyclone was made in 2017. That way, the National Hurricane Center could issue tropical storm or hurricane watches and warnings ahead of a storm's formation, so that way all the timing were consistent.
And it has been quite contentious at times. Overall, I think it's been a good thing. But I think the general public might just get a little bit confused by it. But at the end of the day, they do it to issue the warnings, and I suppose being in a hurricane watch, in the case of Nicaragua right now, is going to be way more important than whether this thing has a name or not. I suppose. Another comment, how big is Tropical Storm Chaba now, and will it be a Category 1 or 2 typhoon? And the second answer, yes, definitely. Well, should be. And how large is it? Well, quite large. Xavier's got a more zoomed out view, I think.
Yeah, I can already tell you the outflow extends for way over 500 miles. If you go all the way down to where the outflow band goes down, that's over 1,000 miles. So the outflow from this is very much impressive, and it goes quite far from the center. Okay, hold on, it's messing with me now. In terms of its smallest thing, assuming we're just looking at the top end here, on 180 miles. So pretty much nearly the entire cloud cover to the north of it is tropical storm force winds, given the fact that I know, as per the latest JTWC advisory, tropical storm force winds do extend 130 to 140 miles out from the center, all except for the southwestern quadrant where it's only like 70.
I saw a question somewhere and I've lost it now, but I remembered what you said about what will happen if 2L becomes a tropical storm over land. I believe the official line is still that it would get the Atlantic name until it emerges off the coast into the Pacific.
So we just have to hope it does it somehow in the middle of the coast for a stupid reason. I'm kidding.
I think that's what the official line is. It certainly was before.
I mean, it would be interesting to figure it out. Just not have 2L develop. Just make it actually develop while inland Nicaragua, and then it becomes a giant debate as to which name it should have.
It would be a giant debate no matter what, yeah. God. But no, the more, and let's just see if we can, this is probably slightly old now, just refresh this image source. If we can, I've just got to figure out how all this works. Maybe this, if I didn't break it. I've broken it, haven't I?
I don't know, did you?
Yep, I've definitely broken it.
Wouldn't be a live TWB without something breaking.
Well, I'm trying to just get it to show a latest image loop. Just a minute, I'll get the right link. In the meantime, you can take a look once again at Chaba, and let's see if we can refresh that one, which we will be able to. No problem. And just a few more frames that we've got in there now. Convection still ballooning out in the center there. Well covered now by massive convective cloud tops. And when you looked at it 24 hours ago, on last night's update, it was very much the opposite, where there was a dry intrusion and an exposed center. But now looking far, far better. Northern side is it's got lesser influence over there on the northern side, but it is growing substantially. The curved banding reaching Hainan, just about to reach the Hong Kong area, and the image source for the 2L imagery now appears to have gone down, so that's wonderful. Who'd have thunk it? Well, at least that one's not our fault.
It's going down for you too.
Yes, has it gone down for you?
It's been having issues for a while for me.
Ah, that's
What's
a
going on?
yikes.
What's the issue?
It's not loading for us.
Just the things that. Let's see. There's no mesoscale on it, is there? Oh, there is.
There is, but
Right.
it's all over the place.
We're gonna go and get that then. We may as well get the best. And oh, that is a super close up, and a cropped close up as well. We'll try and fix that crop a little bit. We work with so many different kinds of imagery, so there's always cropping that has to be done when we change sources sometimes. So there is a view. Just try and get to see more of it. That's a bit better. So you can see the progress. That's on infrared, of course. And in a moment, I'm just going to try and get... There was no visible anymore because the sun's just set, but try and get a geocolor for you, or geocolor type, to show you how it's looking on a similar format to what we were looking at earlier. Let's just get this here. So that's just a shortwave infrared actually, I believe, but there you can see its progress, and you still get a good feel for what the system's doing. And when you do look at the convective tops and everything going on around it, there's not much rotation in those convective tops. So once again, it shows that something's not quite right with this system, that it's still not yet deserving of a name. Now, Adafira, are you showing us anything?
I am showing ocean heat content,
All right.
sea surface temperature anomalies, and some models.
Yeah, let's go into that then. Why don't we?
Alright, so let's start with the sea surface temperatures. In let's start where 94E is in the eastern Pacific. It's about 27 to 28 degrees Celsius, where as you go northern or westward towards the Central Pacific line, it does drop down towards 25 or 26. Then going back towards where 02L is in the Atlantic, it's about 28 to 29, and if it crosses over, it will still be dealing with temperatures at first a bit cooler, however, still pretty warm. 95L is in very favorable conditions, 29 to 30, although that land interaction may deal with
Yeah,
a bunch
not
with it.
much good it'll do.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the 30 degrees Celsius marks are also helped by the ongoing heat wave that is thankfully dying down. And finally, our AOI in the main development region is still dealing with about 27 to 28. The South Atlantic is not that big of a deal. Going into the Arabian Sea up by the coast of Pakistan, it does get up towards 30 degrees Celsius. However, the closer you get to the Horn of Africa, it naturally gets cooler, although overall it's about 28 to 29. And the majority of the Bay of Bengal is also around 28 to 29.
Yep.
The Western Pacific is very piping hot, with the South China Sea especially, mostly 30 degrees Celsius. However, down to 28 to 29, still very hot as you approach the coast of China, and these are the conditions Chaba will be dealing with. 05W is in a little pocket of 30 degrees Celsius, and it will drop off to 29 to 28, potentially down to 27 as it approaches Japan. Southern Hemisphere, naturally, well, we know that the naming list changes today. So, yes, it has. And we are now in the 22-23 Southern Hemisphere. And naturally, in the Southern Hemisphere, it's cooled off rapidly. Going to the sea surface temperature anomalies, it's the best I could find, honestly. You can see that La Nina is still going there. It's going. The Eastern Pacific is mostly below average, with a pocket of above average near the Baja Peninsula. The Western Pacific is overall near to above average, as well as the Atlantic.
Is that
the Gulf.
Tiny pocket of below average in the Philippine Sea there?
I think that is a tiny pocket of below average.
Curious.
Interesting.
JTWC have gone and upgraded 5W to a tropical storm just now.
Ooh.
We could see our next named storm.
That doesn't mean that the JMA is going to name it, but the JTWC have upgraded to a tropical storm. Winds are 40 miles per hour and a pressure of 998 millibars.
Well, it's always had the tropical storm force winds. It was just the circulation that was lacking, and I thought they would wait longer looking at it.
Interesting. Anyway, 02L is in about above average. Most of the Atlantic's near to above average. And the Arabian Sea is above average in the north portions, and as you get towards the equatorial region, specifically towards Somalia, it tends to die off below average. Bay of Bengal's just slightly above average. Ocean heat content now in the Atlantic. Let's start with the ocean heat content in the Atlantic. Overall, moderate in the main development region, especially towards French Guiana, however, which is around where our Atlantic AOI is. Not a lot of ocean heat content for the northern side of 02L, or the southern side, I meant. The northern side, it does have a bit more ocean heat content to handle with.
Compare this to just over a week ago when I probably did my last normal tropical weather bulletin. That Caribbean, West and Central has grown extraordinarily in the last week.
Yeah, I've been watching it because I watched it for 5 nights in a row, and I just saw the oranges. Because when I started doing the DOB marathon, we were only having like the colors of yellow, and then I just started the oranges and reds starting to pop on. And I'm like, okay, then it looks like the Caribbean's starting to get up there a lot quicker than I expected.
And then, of course, we have our hot pocket, yummy, in between Louisiana and Florida.
Oh yeah, I've been referring to it as the death spot for obvious reasons.
The blob.
The-
It's, yes, it's dark red
Well,
blob here.
the death spot, whatever you want to call
The
it.
dead spot. Oh
The
The
dear.
death
sweet.
spot. All right, and then ocean heat content in the Eastern Pacific.
Look at the
Just
state of it.
no. And then, of course,
Excuse
Western
me?
Pacific is always piping. Like,
To be
just a
fair,
lot.
Ethan, the Eastern Pacific isn't doing too great in terms of conditions right now.
I don't care.
The Eastern Pacific hasn't been doing good for the past 4 years, Xavier.
That is true. It's also because we've been in a neutral or La Nina the last 4 years.
The last time we had an El Nino was 2015. Anyway,
2018. Why do
Okay.
people forget 2018 was an El Nino?
I always I always thought it was a neutral. Anyway, the South China Sea, where Chaba is, it does have a little bit of ocean heat content, but not much. So we're not going to see a Cat 5 landfall in China. No, that's not going to happen.
You're not gonna ask people. You're not gonna get people asking the probabilities for that because you mentioned it.
Oh,
Hmm.
great. Well, ocean heat content by 5W Philippine named Domeng is doing okay. It is gonna go into like no ocean heat content though.
Yeah.
You can end this off with some fantastic water vapor imagery of 94E.
It does look cool, and it looks like a TC when you look at satellite imagery. But
On
don't
which
be
one?
fooled.
94E.
Don't be fooled. The southern side of it is awful. Rotten.
Non-existent.
Non-existent, yeah. Not even there.
I'll see
It had it a
mass.
couple of days. It had it a day or two ago.
You can also see it's about to have another convective burst.
It is. It's a shame because we'll be getting ASCAT in about 2 or 3 hours on the West Pacific, so we might get to see whether 5W is a bona fide tropical storm. JMA, I'm just keeping looking at the page just in case they do an update before we go off the air, because they were pesky last night and they upgraded Chaba as soon as we came off. Do you think they're watching?
It better not be.
So a funny thing just happened. ATCF just took off 2L.
Right.
I'm not kidding.
Wow.
ATCF just took off 2L, and FNMOC just downgraded PTC 2L back down to Invest 94L.
Bruh.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Really?
Well, a source has said in the public server that the ATCF is actually remaining with a disturbance for this update. So
Which for what? Sorry.
for 2L,
Right.
which I would agree with.
Sometimes they do get taken off for a few minutes, so but you don't know what they'll put it back on as, so that's something rather interesting. I don't know whether we'll get to see the whole story unfold live, but lots of speculation there. That's what we're looking at right now on the main screen here. This is Potential Tropical Cyclone 2, a super close-up on the mesoscale rapid scan imagery. Pictures taken every 1 minute. I think sometimes, in some cases, they do it every half minute.
I've got a question for you, Nathan.
Yes.
I know that we are currently code orange on T-Coast, right? What do you think that that's going to go up to code red for Chaba later on down the line, or do you think that it's going to remain at orange? What are you thinking?
It is a good question. It's a close one. I'm a little bit concerned that it's not, the algorithm isn't fully registering the chances of strong winds on land as much as it could be. So those scores might go up again soon. I think it will get fairly close. And this is what we're going to start to see with T-Coast was rejigged and recalibrated at the start of this year so that we would be getting more code oranges and less code reds, so that code reds only happen in the most urgent situations and the point where we just go live all the time. So it's going to be difficult for it to get to code red. So my instinct would be no right now. 90 points maybe. 100 points is code red.
We'll have to wait and see, though. Only time will tell.
Indeed.
So you did mention the population risk. What actually is the population risk numbers of, I don't know, let's say 50 knot winds or above?
Yeah, for 50 knot winds right now, and I just want to make sure we're illustrating the correct storm, so we just switch back to the imagery of Chaba, which is what we're discussing. We currently have it at trying to remember what number it was, but it was over 10 million.
Wow.
Updates out on Tropical Storm Chaba. JMA now forecast a typhoon. They forecast a peak of 70 knots. That's 80 miles per hour and 10 minutes sustained winds. So that's 10 knots higher than their previous update.
Wow.
That's quite fascinating as well. If you do have any more questions for us, now is a great time to take advantage, because we've got just a few more minutes left to run here, and we're just going to be going over everything again, really. Just taking a look at some
models, Nathan.
Oh, we'll do that in just a moment. We haven't had a look yet, actually, so we should do that. Just one other question that was there a minute ago. Is there a storm surge warning for associated with Chaba? Not that I know of, but there probably should be.
I don't think that they actually do storm surge warnings for outside of the U.S., I don't think.
I don't know if China does specifically storm surge warnings. I can tell you, though, that they have, I don't know how recent this is, but this is a new development, at least from my understanding, that they have now put yellow typhoon warnings, which is the second level on their 4 tiers. It goes blue, yellow, orange, red. So they've got yellow typhoon warnings now for parts of the Lizu Peninsula. I'm just trying to establish how far up the coast it goes, but it's not currently cooperating with me. And it includes, anyone who's familiar with Chinese geography, it includes Zhanjiang, and it goes as far as Wuchuan and possibly Maoming as well. So yellow typhoon warnings there, and that sort of shows where they're expecting that landfall to be on the northern part of the Lisu Peninsula. And actually they've issued a yellow oh no, that was just a trick. Okay. But plenty of blue typhoon warnings across Hainan now, and across Guangdong province. Hong Kong and Macau, I believe, are both in signal 3 storm signals for their locations. We had some more questions. What is holding PTC2 back from developing further?
Well, Recon is in there right now, and they found that despite there being more convection than there was earlier, the center's actually less defined than it was. So at this point, it seems that 2L just badly does not want to develop and will find every single way to try to screw up itself, really.
Oh my goodness.
It gets a good amount of convection but doesn't have a center, or it gets a center but doesn't have the convection, or doesn't have the convection. And now we're looking at this flipping of the table again, because it looks like the center is less than defined than it was earlier.
Okay. What is the temperature of, they say, Typhoon Chaba? It's not there yet. and I'm not sure exactly what you mean by the temperature of it. Are we talking cloud top temperature? There's no eye temperature to speak of yet, or the sea surface temperatures underneath it, which are around 28 degrees Celsius at least.
Up
But
to
it's,
around 30.
yep, chugging with decent cloud tops, which were pushing minus 90 degrees earlier. So please clarify if you can. What is happening with the storm near Texas? Even less than what's happening with 2L.
It looks terrible.
Yeah.
Yes, in a
Nothing.
more actual sense. Okay, in a more actual sense, 95L is the actual name for it. It's gone a little bit northwestward, and all of its convection is pretty much just placed to the east of the center. Given the fact that land interaction and some wind shear is not exactly helping it right now. Regardless, the main threat of this is pretty much similar to everything else we're dealing with right now, and that is rain. This is the rainfall amounts associated with this. Let me see if I can pull this up in a bigger... Okay, maybe not, but I can just do this and shoot it. Alright, there we go. Slightly less quality, but it's fine. As of right now, most of the rainfall totals are going to be confined to southeastern Texas, as well as extreme southwestern Louisiana, where 4 to 6 inches of rain are possible. So Galveston, Angleton, and Huac, you guys are looking at 4 to 6 inches. Houston, you guys are looking at 2 to 3. As you head into Bay City, all the way up into Cleveland, also 2 to 3 inches of rain. And then once you get further inland, College Station, you guys are looking about half an inch to an inch. So yeah, most of the rainfall is confined to the local areas. If you are in Texas and Louisiana and wondering what rainfall you're going to be seeing, you might want to check your local National Weather Service, whether you're in the National Weather Service for Lake Charles or the National Weather Service in Houston. As of right now, in terms of the excessive rainfall forecast, Weather Prediction Center does have a slight risk from tonight through tomorrow, all throughout Houston into Galveston. They're saying rainfall rates of 2 to 3 inches per hour or higher in the strongest of storms. The highest rainfall totals, as I mentioned, are going to be expected near along the coast. And looks like the next round of storms should occur late Thursday night through early Friday afternoon. So it looks like the worst of this will pretty much be tonight into tomorrow morning. And as always, they put in yellow, be weather aware and weather prepared. Obviously, as we have covered on many times before in terms of cyclone streams, the cyclone winds itself, any kind of cyclone, the winds are usually not the deadliest factor. It tends to be the rainfall. Flooding is the number one killer when it comes to hurricanes and cyclones or any type of tropical related disturbance. So definitely make sure that you are, whether you're in the risk for Chaba, whether you're in the risk for 95L, make sure you have your flash flood safety plans in place in the event flash flooding does occur.
Well, what we saw on radar earlier will definitely have to change if that is going to verify, because it looked pretty pathetic.
I've got something that's very last minute, but
Yep.
I've gone and I've done a forecast cone on 5W here. I couldn't do
Right.
one on Chaba because it was actually difficult to get a center fix until the last minute. So I went ahead and did a 5W cone, and this is my thoughts that I've got on the forecast cone right now. Of course, it's got the Philippine name. I don't know how you pronounce it. Domain.
Domain.
Thank you. But yeah, forecast intensification as it pushes through the Ryukyu Islands, and it's going to make that curve up towards the Korean Peninsula. Fairly low confidence up there in where this goes. Does it go on the western side? Does it go on the eastern side? We'll have to wait and see, but I've opted to include a fairly large cone up there.
And with that, we have run out of time. We had so much to discuss here, and it has flown by here at Force 13 HQ on this Tropical Weather Bulletin. But we're going to have to wrap this up, folks. So let's take a look at what happened on this day. Where is it? Here it is. So, July 1st, 2001, look at this. Almost a mirror image. Durian, it was, the typhoon that was approaching the Leizhou Peninsula and southern China, and 6W was just forming further out to the east of the Philippines as well. I mean, that's a bit different today, but that storm there, Durian, could be what Chaba becomes very soon indeed, although you'll note that Durian is a little bit smaller and of quite a different complexion as well, let's be honest. But in the Atlantic, the next name on the list is Bonnie. Still haven't seen it yet. Eastern Pacific, it's Darby. And in the Central Pacific, it's Xavier.
Moment.
We're still waiting for Hone. Sorry, no joke. We're Code Orange.
Yes.
Again.
In the Western Pacific, it's Ere, I think it's pronounced. Something like that. In the North
Air.
Indian Ocean,
Irie. It's Irie.
it's Sitrang. And for the first time, we'll get to see the new names for this upcoming year in the Southwest Indian Ocean. There they are. The first name on this year's list is Ashley. In the Australian region, the next name is Darian. And in the South Pacific, it's Harley. That's it from me and my team tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow night.